I, 17F, had an identical twin sister. We were inseparable and did everything together. She was honestly my best friend. Last year in September, my stepmom had to pick us up from a volleyball game. Our dad usually picked us up, but he was out of town. She was an hour late because she forgot about us. Well, on the way home, she kept ranting about how we disturbed her nap. Long story short, she ran a stop sign at an intersection. We got into a horrible accident. Most of that night was a blur, but I remember the last few minutes before the crash. I was hospitalized for weeks, but my twin sister passed away that night. I haven't forgiven my stepmom. She refuses to acknowledge that she was in the wrong. Even though there were eyewitnesses present, she refuses to accept responsibility for causing the accident. I'm not an angry person. I'm a very calm and not confrontational at all. But I can't even look at her without feeling like she stole from me. She stole my sister's life away. And she acts like my sister never existed to begin with. One thing that really struck a nerve was when I was out at Walmart with my dad and stepmom. We had to buy something for my younger brother and they started a conversation with an old man. I can't remember exactly what they were talking about, but the old man asked my dad how many kids he had. My dad said he had 4 kids, but my stepmom corrected him by saying, "Number 3. That just made me really sad. I didn't speak to her the rest of the day. I can't describe how I feel. I lost my best friend who I shared everything with. My sister knew exactly how I felt about everything because we experienced life together. Now, I constantly feel like I'm a zombie. I often dream about her, but when I wake up and reality hits, it absolutely crushes me. Living is unbearable without my sister." Please ignore any spelling errors. For some background, my dad cheated on my mom, with my stepmom. They ultimately got divorced, which was really hard on our family. My mom ended up moving back to her home country in Europe. My twin sister and I had to stay with our dad. I, 17F, live with my dad, my stepmom and my younger brothers. Last year in September, my twin sister and I had a volleyball game at school. My dad was usually the one who picked us up from our games and practices, but he couldn't that night. My dad was out of town, so our stepmom had to come pick us up. She arrived an hour late because she took a nap and forgot about us. As soon as we got in the car, she started going on a rant about how we disturbed her nap. Long story short, she ran a stop sign at an intersection. We got into a horrible accident. Most of that night was a blur, but I remember the last few minutes before the crash. I was hospitalized for weeks, but my twin sister passed away that night. I can't describe how I feel. I lost my best friend who I shared everything with. My sister knew exactly how I felt about everything because we experienced life together. Now, I constantly feel like I'm a zombie. I'm not suicidal, but I often imagine/think about ending my own life because living is unbearable without my sister. Well, last night, my stepmom made a special dinner for her birthday. After the accident, I stopped eating dinner with the rest of my family. It just feels wrong eating without my sister at the table, so I eat alone in my room. Well, my dad insisted I eat with them downstairs. I protested, but he begged me. Dinner started off normally. My stepmom announced to my brothers, 8M, 5M, and I that she was pregnant. My brothers were really happy and asked for the gender of the baby. My stepmom excitedly said that it was a girl. My brothers kept talking about they were excited about getting a younger sister. My stepmom mentioned how they could help decorate her nursery. I looked up and asked her, which room would be the nursery. She excitedly said that she was going to use my twin sister's room. She mentioned how she already started removing things from her room in the morning and putting them in the attic. I asked her why she didn't bother telling me before she went ahead and started moving my sister's stuff. It was a big deal to me because aside from me, no one has been in her room since she's passed. Sometimes when I miss her, I sit in her room to feel closer to her. And some nights, I fall asleep in her room. My stepmom got really defensive. She said that I needed to accept that she was having a baby and needed the empty room. I told her that I understood that she was pregnant, but a heads up would have been nice before she started removing things from my sister's room. She looked at me and said that she didn't need to tell me anything because she was the mother of the household. She said she was doing what was best for the interest of her baby and she didn't need my negativity. I stayed silent trying to tune her out, but I snapped when she mentioned how I needed to accept my sister's death and move on. She said something along the lines of, "Your twin passed away and you need to accept that. It's hard, but you've got your father, your brothers and I plus, you're getting a new sister who you can build an even stronger relationship with. You need to move on because nothing will bring, twin sister, back." I knew I was getting angry, so I excused myself and left the table. My dad started yelling about how I was being dramatic and I needed to come back or I'd be grounded. I continued walking away, until my stepmom said, "I don't understand what her problem is. She couldn't even bother to be happy about my pregnancy, but she's angry about me moving things out of an unoccupied bedroom." I turned around and stared at her in disbelief. My stepmom often acts like twin sister never existed. An example, 2 months ago, I was at Walmart with my dad and stepmom. We were buying a birthday present for my younger brother and they got into a conversation with an older man. I wasn't paying much attention, but the old man asked my dad how many kids he had. My dad said he had 4 kids, but my stepmom responded saying, "Number 3. She does stuff like that all the time, which drives me insane." I started going off on her and she sat there quietly. I mentioned how she's been the cause of every major traumatic event in my life. I reminded her that she knowingly started sleeping with a married man. She knew he had a wife and kids, but she didn't care. She broke up my family, sending my mom into a deep depression which ultimately led her to move away. Then I reminded her that she was too preoccupied with ranting about how we disturbed her nap, which ultimately led to a car accident that had me hospitalized for weeks. And I lost my twin sister because of her carelessness. I told her that she had no right to just take things out of my sister's room. And I wasn't angry about her new baby, but the fact that she started boxing and removing stuff from my sister's room without even telling me in advance. Then finally I told her that it was cruel of her to tell me to move on from the traumatic death of my twin sister. She argued back that the accident happened and I was living in the past. She said everything happens for a reason and God works in mysterious ways. I straight up asked her if she thought that my sister's death could not have been avoided. And she responded saying, "It was just unlucky fate." I reminded her that my sister would be alive if she wasn't distracted. My stepmom then told me that I make her feel like I wanted her to die instead. I just stayed silent and she kept asking me if she was correct. I turned to walk away and my stepmom grabbed my arm. I asked her to let go and she kept saying, "You want me dead, don't you?" I stayed silent again, but she kept repeating it. I eventually got mad and truthfully told her that my life would have been easier that way. She started crying and my dad called me heartless. I did apologize a few minutes later, but my dad snapped and asked me to leave my stepmom alone. Since then, my dad has been giving me the silent treatment while my stepmom just avoids me. Ada? Comments where Op has replied. Popular Block 5790, you're definitely NTA. Op, I'm really sorry for your loss. Your feelings are completely understandable. Your stepmom and dad are huge your stepmom for various reasons including not stopping asking. She shouldn't ask if she didn't want an answer. Your dad because he isn't protecting you and getting you the help you need. Can you talk with your mom about it? How involved is she? You're still her child. Is there any adult in your life that you trust and can help you? You need a mental health professional. You need tools to move forward. You have every right to be angry and feel what you feel. Oop, yes, my mom is involved in my life. We text every day and try to FaceTime at least twice a week. But my sister's death was really hard on my mom. My mom's mental health has been rocky for the past 10 years, so I don't want to trigger anything by telling her how bad I'm hurting. A year after my parents got divorced, my grandpa got really sick. He was diagnosed with a terminal illness. My mom decided to go back to Europe to help take care of her dad and spend time with him. She wanted to take my sister and I with her, but my dad fought her in court. Ultimately we had to stay with our dad in the US, but we traveled to France every summer. Even after my grandpa passed, my mom decided to stay in France. She told my sister and I that going back to the US would mentally destroy her. It was too many negative memories for her and she wanted to stay close to her mom. Aside from my mom and her family, all I've got is my friends. My dad was never close with his family. He's got an older brother that I've never met. And I honestly don't know much about my grandparents. I wanted to look into therapy, but my dad refused. He doesn't believe that it will be helpful and says that it will fill my brain with garbage. He said that if I needed some advice or counseling, I could talk to him or my pastor, which I don't feel comfortable doing. Elegant_dirt_4479. How was she not charged if her running a stop sign caused the death? Oop, she was. She's on probation and I think she also had to pay a fine. Tits McGee 8008, your dad is worried therapy will illuminate to you just how awful of a human being and father he is. Do you have a plan to get out once you are an adult? Are you planning on attending college/university? When you are 18, can you move to France to be with your mom? If you don't have an escape plan yet, I suggest you work on one. Unfortunately, your dad has proven that nothing, not even the death of his child, is enough for him to side with you or fight for you against your stepmonster. Get your necessary documents, passport, birth certificate, social security card, and get a plan in place to leave as soon as you are 18. You are less than a year away, get ready for it and bounce. Oop, thank you so much for the idea of an escape plan. I have dual citizenship, so I have thought about moving to France a lot. But honestly I don't think it's a good idea. I can speak French fluently and for the most part I can read it, but I can't write in French. And my vocabulary isn't really expanded if that makes sense. I do really well in casual/normal conversations, but since I'm only really around my family in France, I don't know bigger/more professional words in French. So I'm afraid that might be a problem if I try to find a job there. But I've looked into colleges in my state and toured some with my friends. I found one that I really like, so I plan on hopefully being able to attend once I graduate. My dad keeps all of my important documents, so I'll try to find a way to convince him to give them to me. Update, I'm sorry it took so long to get back to everyone, but a lot has happened in the last few months. To start, thank you all for the overwhelming support. I wasn't able to read most of the responses to my last post because I went to sleep after posting it. When I woke up, there were several viral TikTok videos about my situation. I didn't know about any of that, but my stepmom's younger sister saw one of the Reddit videos and sent it to their family group chat. And my stepmom saw the video, and lost it when she read the comments. She took my phone, laptop, and grounded me right after I woke up. When my dad got home from work, he backed her up. Her entire family was furious, and my dad got yelled at by her parents. And they tried to force me to take the post down, but I wouldn't give them my phone's password, so there's little they could do about that. They kept calling me insensitive and disrespectful for bringing strangers into a private matter. As a part of my punishment, I wasn't allowed to leave my room. They wouldn't allow me to use my phone or laptop to communicate with my mom at all. They said I could get those privileges back after they deemed that I learned my lesson. A week after everything, my stepmom lost her baby, and she blamed me for it. She said I was causing the entire family too much stress. She just kept yelling at me that I did this to her, and she refused to even glance in my direction. She had a huge argument with my dad about how she wanted me gone. She ended up staying with her parents for the night. And my stepmom even tried to turn my younger brothers against me, and it worked with the older one. My dad tried to convince me to apologize to her, but I didn't even understand what I would be apologizing for. His wife's pregnancy was already high risk due to many other issues. She has miscarried 3 babies in the past 2 years. I don't know anything about her medical health, but I once overheard her talking on the phone about an abnormality she had that caused her to lose her other babies. And I just fell into a really bad place mentally after that. 4 days after everything happened with my family, I tried to take my life. My dad and stepmom went out with my brothers, and I tried to overdose on Benadryl. It was the most painful experience of my life. I didn't feel anything at first, but I eventually passed out. I don't know how long I was out, but when I woke up I started throwing up. I was in so much pain, and could barely move. I can't remember much, but I think I passed out again. And my little brother found me passed out and covered in vomit, and my dad ended up calling 911. I ended up in the ER. I can't remember everything because it was a blur, but I had to drink activated charcoal. They ran a bunch of tests, drew my blood and gave N4. I was hallucinating for hours, and I woke up in a different hospital. I lied to my doctors about everything because I didn't want to get in trouble, but I was still involuntarily sent to a psychiatrist hospital anyways. My dad was against it, but I was there for a little over a week. I got into a lot of trouble for attempting to take my life. My dad didn't speak to me for a week after I came home. While I was gone, my dad read all my journals where I wrote about how much I hated myself, my life, and wished my sister was still alive. He also found out that I was hurting myself by reading it. He eventually made me read all the pages out loud to him, my stepmom, and my pastor. And my pastor gave me a 3-hour lesson on letting go of anger in the past. They also took away my door because I lost that privilege. And my stepmom made it verbally known that she didn't want me there anymore. My dad told me that he was going to send me to a behavioral camp/teen residential program for troubled kids, since I tried to take my life. I still didn't have any of my electronics back, and they refused to leave me alone for extended periods of time. So I had to stay in the living room all day, and could only go in my room when it was time for bed. My dad made me keep my door open while I showered, so my stepmom could monitor me. I wasn't allowed to play volleyball this year as a punishment, which really sucked. I just felt so stuck, and I knew that I'd be sent away to one of those awful camps. I've heard so many bad stories about them, so I took my stepmom's iPad in the middle of the night. I was able to call my best friend. I explained everything to her. She told her parents, and they agreed to help me. I packed a few bags, took a bunch of things that remind me of my sister, and planned to leave 3 nights later. I was able to get my birth certificate and social security card because I told my stepmom I needed them for a job interview at our church's daycare. She surprisingly gave them to me. For 2 nights, my best friend would drive to my house at around 3 a.m. to get some of my things and my sister's old stuff. And then on the 3rd night, I finally found where my dad was keeping my phone and laptop, so I took them back. And I left with my best friend that night. I don't want to accidentally incriminate anyone, so I can't say too much about what happened the night I left or who I was with afterwards. But my dad tried to press charges on several people, but that went nowhere. He gave up on trying to get me to go home because my stepmom was happy with me gone anyways. It's been 3 months since I left. I'm happy to say that I'm safe. I haven't heard from my dad or his wife in weeks. And from what I've heard, they're not on good terms. I'm currently staying with my mom's cousin, but once I graduate high school I plan on moving to Europe to be closer to my mom. I turned 18 today. I'm happy that I no longer have to legally see my dad again. Also, thank you for those who personally messaged me, gave me legal advice, or even suggested I look into pursuing a lawsuit against my stepmother. Please excuse any spelling errors. This brought back a lot of negative emotions. Comments where Op has replied. Drunk, Hornet, Okay. Read both stories, but where the fuck is your real mom in all this? No calls, emails, texts, nothing? She moved to Europe. Why can't you move to here and live with her and finish your education there? Or even more so, why didn't you move in with her after your twin sister died? Her daughter died? For some background, my dad cheated on my mom, with my stepmom. They ultimately got divorced, which was really hard on our family. My mom ended up moving back to her home country in Europe. My twin sister and I had to stay with our dad. What is this had to stay with your dad thing? At this point as well you were driven to suicide and already moved out. I would have taken the fastest plane ticket and see her because I would need her, and she would need you after one of her daughters died? Well, whatever the case. Good luck. It's just weird to me. I would rather fail a year of education and start over than life in that household. Oop, it's complicated. My mom and dad divorced when I was 8 years old. My mom moved to France a little after my 9th birthday. But before that, they had split custody. My mom tried to get full custody of us because she wanted to take us to France with her. But my dad fought her in court, and he ended up winning. My dad is significantly wealthier than my mom, so he had better legal presentation and tried to drag out the process for as long as possible. Ultimately, my dad was awarded full custody of us. And we only got to see my mom during the summer when visited her in France. We still kept in contact with her through calls and text messages throughout the year. After my sister's death, my mom did come to the funeral. She and I pleaded with my dad to allow me to live with her. But he wouldn't allow it, and she didn't have the money to fight him in court. She tried reaching out to his pastor and his family to convince him, but they weren't interested in getting involved. My dad threatened to take legal action against her if she didn't leave his family alone. And after that, I didn't have regular contact with my mom because she was struggling with her mental health and alcoholism. But she's been to rehab, has been sober now for almost a year, and she's in therapy. We talk every day and she's been my rock through all of this. She's doing a lot better, and came to see me last month for Thanksgiving. And I've been staying with her cousin that's been really nice.